peace of the Lord be with you all, dear brothers and sisters, and I welcome you to this Sunday's reflection. We are celebrating the 27th Sunday in Ordinary Time. What's the one of the big things that has preoccupied you since you were a child and throughout all of the years that followed? Isn't it fear of rejection? Try to recall your early days of childhood. Even as a tiny baby, you screamed, you shrieked, you cried if you were not held, cuddled, or loved by your father and mother. As a child, you craved to play with playmates, and you were very miserable when they didn't want you to play with them. And when you were a teenager, well, words can't begin to describe the pain and fear a teenager experiences when faced with rejection. Sometimes we are so obsessed with the fear of rejection that we treat others badly. We treat them as if we were already being rejected. Pope Francis has something particular to say to us in this regard. In last June of this year, he said this: when adolescents feel unloved, they may turn to violence, hatred, or even delinquent behavior. There is no such thing as a bad child, or there is no such thing as an evil adolescent. Pope Francis continued to say, but there are unhappy people. Yes, dear brothers and sisters, unhappiness sometimes is a consequence, is the result of rejection. With all of the rejection we give to each other, and in the midst of all of the rejection we experience ourselves, do we ever stop and consider how God has been hurt by our rejection of His love for us all? In this Sunday's readings, Jesus presented us with a parable. Just before he entered Jerusalem for the last time, the crowds were about to spread palms in front of him. Shortly thereafter, he would go up to the Mount of Olives, there to weep and cry out in pain, when he looked over to Jerusalem and cried, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you that kill the prophets and stone those who are sent to you, how often have I longed to gather your children, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you refused. Then they cried, crucify him, crucify him. And they crucified him on the Golgotha. A week before they cried, Hosanna, Hosanna. A week later, they cried, crucify him. We don't like to admit it, but many times we reject God. We deny that in fact we do. How many times there has been when we just couldn't be bothered by God? How many people act as if God simply doesn't matter? How many times does His inner voice call us to do something and we refuse to listen to Him? Then there's the matter of God's forgiveness. We are simply ignorant of that horrific sin that is slapping God in the face, declaring that God's love, God's forgiveness simply doesn't matter, that we can't be bothered about it. How many people do we know that should go to Mass, but they don't go because they can't be bothered, have more important things to do than that to receive God's love? Dear brothers and sisters, the pain of rejection is horrible, as we all know. That pain is made crystal clear and perfectly evident when we take a good look at the crucifix and understand its profound message, namely our rejection of God's love for us. That's why there's a human body hanging on it. It's not an empty cross. It's a cross loaded to the full with our rejection, the worst kind of pain that any of us can ever experience. The crucifix presents us with God nailed and immobilized because we won't listen to Him. The parable we are going to hear this Sunday is more than just a parable about us. It is rather a glimpse into God's heart. It tells us about how He feels about the hurt and pain He experiences at our hands. One may wonder whether or not God can suffer hurt. In Jesus Christ, God, the Son, made human for us. He certainly did. And nothing caused Him more pain than our rejection of Him, of His love. Saint Francis of Assisi was so fond of the crucifix. He wanted to experience what Jesus felt. What Jesus felt not only on the cross, but what Jesus felt as a result of our rejection. And so once, in the beginning of his conversion, he entered the church of San Damiano in Assisi, and there, kneeling down in front of the cross, he experienced God's love, but also Jesus' rejection from us humans. And from that day onwards, he began his journey into the heart of Jesus. Saint Francis of Assisi was so fond of the cross that he left us, friars, a very beautiful prayer in front of the cross. And today, before ending this small reflection, I want to pray with you this most beautiful prayer. Most high and glorious God, enlighten the darkness of my heart and give me true faith, certain hope, and perfect charity, a sense of knowledge, Lord, that I may carry out your holy and true command. Amen. May the peace of the Lord be with you all, dear brothers and sisters. I greet you from the Franciscan Capuchin Friary of Spello in Italy. And may God bless you and give you everlasting happiness. Bless you all. Peace and good.